In 1983, at the height of MTV, this female rocker took pop radio hostage with this explosive anthem. Today, I'm going to sit down with the famous co-writer of this classic song. I guess it started out when her legendary songwriting partner blurted out this weird title. And then the two songwriters, they sat across from each other with a swimming pool between them, and they shot a paper airplane across the pool. And each time they'd write a line or a lyric, every time they'd fly it back across until they finished this song. I mean, luckily it didn't fall in the pool. In the end, she felt like one of the key lyrics of this classic. It sounded like a car commercial to her. But the song certainly lived up to that magnitude as it became this famous rocker's signature hit. And the video, it ruled MTV. Stories coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you used to call your favorite radio station incessantly to request that one song that you wanted to get years before streaming, you know, when you had the pause button ready to record hoping the DJ didn't talk over it, you're gonna love this channel. Just subscribe below to get the stories from the artists. We also have a Patreon you might want to look at for another catalog of content. You can become an honorary producer and help us curate this music history. Now it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations, where artists and writers take us through a deep dive into their greatest songs and greatest albums, where you'll get never before shared details. Now 1983 was just one of the most pivotal years in music history, and pop culture history really. Several artists and records just impacted our lives. Michael Jackson, Thriller. Absolutely dominated the charts. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a cultural touchstone for sure. It encompassed every aspect of our planet that hasn't been felt since. 1983 was also a big year for another icon who influenced our culture, having already proven that she could rock as hard as anyone. Pat Benatar would blast into the stratosphere with her biggest hit and a mesmerizing music video at the height of MTV. Love is a Battlefield was one for the ages, truly. It hit number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. It also hit number 1 on the rock charts. Pat had started the 80s off with a bang. Heartbreaker was released toward the end of '79, and it gave Pat her first hit. It went to number 23. She then released Crimes of Passion, which included the stadium rocker Hit Me With Your Best Shot. That was her first top 10 hit. It was also a million seller. Now, when MTV debuted in August of 1981, Pat's video for You Better Run, a remake of the Rascal song, was the second video ever played, right behind Video Killed the Radio Star. Then came her first number 1 album with Precious Time. That was in late summer of '81. It included Fire and Ice. And The Great Promises in the Dark, both top 40 hits. Now in 1982, she had another top 5 album with Get Nervous. That included the gratifying song Shadows of the Night, which went to number 13, one of my favorites. Such a great song. In '83, Pat Benatar melded her blazing voice with a rock song that had fantastic pop sensibilities. Love is a Battlefield was that perfect vehicle for a crossover, sold over 1 million copies, and more than any other artist of her time, Pat Benatar could make pop rock sound tough. Love is a Battlefield was actually a single off of Pat's live album, Live from Earth, written by the awesome team of Holly Knight and Mike Champman, who had written so many hits. It was written as a ballad at first. The song was transformed from there, but I'll let Holly tell that story. I was fortunate to do a Zoom session with Holly Knight on co-writing this classic with Mike Champman. Like I said, both have written some of the greatest hits of the rock era, especially in the '80s. Love is a Battlefield wasn't just a fiery smash record. The Bob Giraldi directed music video was the first ever to use dialogue to tell its story of a rebellious Pat Benatar leaving her home to an overbearing father who tells her to never come back.
You can just forget about coming back.
From there, Benatar becomes a dancer at a New York City club overseen by a scumbag pimp who she confronts after he abuses a fellow dancer. Pat leads a rebellion against him through dance. It's pretty much the way we solved all of our problems in the 80s, right? You have an issue, let's solve it through a dance-off. Pat did this a year before Footloose hit theaters, mind you. It is the coolest dance. You know you loved it too. We still do, really. Who can deny Pat's awesomely 80s shimmy? A scene and a look that unquestionably influenced every 80s kid, whether you lived in the big city of Los Angeles, California, or a one-horse town in Idaho like me. I love how they covered it on 13 Going on 30. I also love the way that Pat and Neil Giraldo interpret it now. I mean, Neil takes his pop rocker up to hard rock. I just love it. Up next, we get the story of this revolutionary pop rock classic from Songwriters Hall of Fame inductee Holly Knight. It's a can't miss. As we go into this interview, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, who helps make this possible. Zenni rocks, what can I say? I wear these things all the time. They're comfortable, they're stylish, and you can design your own pair at Zenni.com. You can do a virtual try-on before you buy it. Check it out today at Zenni.com. Here's Holly with the story of helping create Love is a Battlefield. Love is a Battlefield. Tell me about the process of writing that, what you remember, what inspired it.
You know, look, one of the things that I learned about songwriting is it's very important to spend time on the lyrics. You know, don't just accept the first thing that you come up with unless it's brilliant, because once it's out there forever, you know. Love is a battlefield. So I had the chords to the song in my head already. I just sat down and I started playing them to Mike
Champman.
And then we just started to play on that, and that became like the nucleus of the chorus. The dum 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 bum bum bum. We are young, dum 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 bum, heartache to heart. Okay. So we were mumbling phonetically, stuff like that. But then we sat down, we started, putting down some lyrics. And Mike said, you know what? This is a hit. He said, but we need to come up with like a really strange title. He said, because otherwise it's just going to be just a nice commercial thing. So we need to mix it up, like, maybe write something even a little twisted, And I said, like what? And he goes, I have no clue. And then he goes, and then he starts pacing the floor. He's like a wild animal. He's pacing the floor, like grabbing his head. And I could see he's like about to give birth to something. He goes, I don't know. He says something. He goes, well, not like this, but something that would be weird like this. And he goes, Love is a Battlefield. And I went, what? I said, that's great. Let's use it. And I said, I don't really know what it means. He says, who cares? We'll figure it out when we write it. You like it? Let's do it. Let's sing song. And so we started to bring the song together. It came together beautifully. We wrote that entire song that day, but for one line. And he had written something down on paper, and he said, do you know how to make paper airplanes? And I said, no. Why? He goes, well, let me show you. So he makes a paper airplane, and I go to the other side of the pool, and he shoots it across perfectly. And then I thought, okay. So I open up the paper, and I write down a new lyric line. Folded it up, shot it across to him. And we spent about an hour doing that, shooting paper airplanes across the pool with these lyric ideas. And then we got it. No promises, no demands. It sounds like an ad for a car commercial. But no promises, no demands.
It's a song that if somebody sings it really thought-provoking and just a lot of angst put into it very slow, and it's beautiful.
That's how I do it.
And then it's great as a rock song.
That's how I do it when I perform it. I do it with a piano.
Well, and I want to ask you about some of the specific lyrics. Heartache to heartache. What a line. I mean, it's so simple, but it's never been done before. At that point, tens of thousands of songs have been released as singles, and most of them about love. But heartache to heartache, just that line, so simple, but just so profound.
Thank you.
Heartache to heartache, we stand.
Tell me about some of those little nuances, because sometimes people are looking for a rhyme, but sometimes people have an experience where they're like, oh, that's it.
That song, it all came out of nowhere. You know, you just sort of basically, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. For me, like songwriting, it's almost like, you know, like when you play on a Ouija board and you lay your hands on the triangular little piece and then you feel something pulling you in a direction and you just kind of go with it. Well, that's kind of is what happens. Like if I sit down and write on guitar or piano, it's like my hands kind of just move where it's a weird thing to explain. I can't really, if I could really explain it, I'd probably stop doing it. So I don't want to really know how it works. But you just feel, even phonetically, you start mumbling stuff and then you kind of go back and go, oh, that sounded like I said so and so. And then you actually sit down and really craft the lyrics, you know? And that, I mean, I think that the music part is always like very sort of, very just natural and easy to write. And then, you know, writing lyrics takes a lot more work. It's more cerebral. And I mean, I can't stand stupid lyrics, you know? I mean, let me requalify that. Sometimes I've heard songs, I have no idea what they're singing about. But I love the song and I'll sing along with it, like, oh, blah-dee, blah-da. You know, the Beatles, it's like, I don't know what that means. I don't care. I feel good when I sing along with it, you know? I remember the Pretenders had a lot of words that I don't know what they were singing about, didn't care, you know?
Back on the chain gang.
But if you're going to tell a story, and those are more like hooks and stuff, you know? If you're going to tell a story, then it needs to be something that touches people in the heart.
Well, We Are Strong. When Pat recorded that, her vocal is just a scorcher.
We are strong. No one can tell.
And it became like this anthem when the music video comes out. That's so powerful.
Well, because, you know, that has a lot to do with being a woman, basically sort of navigating through a business that's very heavily male dominated, you know? I mean, you have singers. There's always been great female singers, but any other role, you know, whether it's songwriting, producing, playing a guitar, maybe piano, it's just feminine enough that, you know, that doesn't fall into it. But I really kind of wanted to cross all those lines, and I wanted to be like one of the guys, you know, I wanted to be taken as perceived as an equal. And I think the whole thing about being strong, it's not that it was like a contrived thing. Like, for instance, when I started having success, I had an interviewer who said to me, you know, a lot of your songs, I've noticed the titles, there's a theme there that they're all about fighting. And I said, well, I write lots of different songs. And I didn't even really think about what he said till I went home and I looked and I'm like, the warrior. Invincible.
We will be invincible.
Love's a battlefield. Very good, you know. And I thought, how did I not see that? It was like, I did that just on, you write what you know. So I was on autopilot when I came up with those things. And, except for Love's a Battlefield, that was Mike's title. But in general, that was kind of my ethos, you know. And I thought, well, why is that, you know? And so it's kind of what my memoirs starts with, is like my upbringing, you know. But I came from an abusive sort of, you know, environment at home, and really had to fight for my survival. And another reason also why I left home at such a young age, you know.
The music video, one of the most iconic in MTV history. Tell me about that moment once that came out and what you were feeling, what you remember about that. That must have just been really empowering.
It was. And at that time, MTV was playing a lot of my videos. to the point where they were starting to talk a lot about me. And they would say things like, oh, and that was another Holly Knight song. And great for me, but I think started annoying some of the acts that I worked with. And I didn't want to like sort of, I didn't want to bite the hand that feeds you sort of. So I actually had my attorney call and say, maybe you should tone down on that, which was kind of funny. I didn't have a PR agent or anything, but they thought that was interesting because I'll tell you what, I was an anomaly.
I mean, I knew who you were when I was just a little kid because Casey Kasem would talk about songwriters. And I thought that was really cool because it helped me as a young kid understand that, because I was like you, I thought Elvis Presley wrote all his own music when I was just really little. And then I really started to understand that the songwriting craft and what went into all that. And that was a great education.
I have a friend, Desmond Child, another great writer.
Co-wrote Living on a Prayer.
And I knew Desmond from the end of the 1970s, early 1980s when I used to play at Trax, and his band, Desmond Child and Rouge, would open up for us. So here it is many, many years later. And he said to me, you were the first. And I said, the first what? And he goes, you were the first girl, like a woman, to go out there as an independent songwriter and work within bands. But I actually wanted to work within bands. And because I had been in a band and because I was a good musician and because I was a tomboy and I was from New York, where everybody says and wears black, I fit right in,
What was your reaction, though, when you saw that video, the music video?
Oh, right. Yeah.
I was always curious because you got Pat Benatar, right, who's a rocker. I mean, you're talking about women in music. And what's cool about this is all of them are related, like Susie Quattro. And then you work with Ann Wilson.
Never let them shoot us down. Never.
You work with Pat Benatar.
Love is a battlefield.
Patti Smythe.
Bang, bang, I am the warrior.
And Joan Jett.
Give a damn about my reputation.
This was the force that brought forward women can rock. Yeah, your reaction when you saw that video and when it came out.
I was, it was like the song. It took me a while to sort of adapt to it. And I'll tell you why. When I first saw Pat, I saw the video, You Better Run.
You better run. You better hide. You better leave.
And she had on this red and white t-shirt. It was just, and black leather pants. And it was very rock and roll. And it was all about her attitude, and you looked in her face and you knew that she meant it. And I saw that and I thought, I want to work with her. I love her. She's so tough. That's so cool. There was the charm of the 80s, And so when I look now and I think and I see that video that Pat did, it's so iconic and it's so 80s, even the shimming kind of dance moves she had. I heard the guy that was the choreographer was the pimp in the video with the gold tooth.
We are young.
He was the choreographer. And then there were all these sort of choreographed moves. And I thought that wasn't as rock and roll. Like Love's Battlefield was like supposed to be epic. But I think part of the fact that they sped it up lent itself to sort of doing those kind of dance moves. I mean, to be honest, my favorite part of the video starts from when she throws the water in his face.
Love is a battlefield.
And then leaves, and all the women follow her, and they're marching down the street as the sun is coming up.
Love is a battlefield.
Well, a lot of these artists were expected to be actors.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It really sort of put a lot of stress on. Now you had to look good, you had to be an actor. Before you just needed to make great music.
Love is a battlefield.
Pat Benatar should have been a first ballot Rock and Roll Hall of Famer along with her husband, guitarist extraordinaire Neil Giraldo. I mean, it's really ridiculous. But leave us a comment about that, as well as this 80s mega hit and about Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo and Holly Knight. What are your memories of this song and the music video? Please let us know in the comments. Now, if you dig our content, our videos, Make sure to subscribe below so you never miss out on our daily content. And make sure to look us up on Patreon for more content. Help us keep the music alive. Until the next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.